Hello YouTube. Yet again, we're working on my favorite series of laptop. It's another Lenovo Legion. Now, regular viewers of the channel will know that I've done a few different repair videos on Lenovo Legions, and I've covered quite a few common solder joint issues, mostly on Legions that were manufactured around 2020, 2021. This one's a bit different. So this one is what is it? It's a Legion Slim 5 14 APH8. And I think this is a lot newer. This was manufactured in the 6th month of 2024, so it's only just over a year old. And it doesn't work properly. So we press the power button and the lights come on, but nobody's home. I mean, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Let's see. Sounds like it's doing something. Yeah, no, nothing. So I have seen this laptop working. It works sometimes, but it doesn't work all the time. Now, when it is working, it will crash with all kinds of messed up lines and colors on the screen. And at first I thought that was a graphics issue, but I did some testing. I ran NVIDIA mods and mats. It all seemed to come back okay. But what I did notice is when I moved the laptop, it would crash. So once this does display, if I pick it up, move it around, do some typing, that sort of thing, this thing will crash and loads of colors will come up on the screen. And then sometimes when it crashes, it just won't turn back on, which is what it's doing now. It's just not displaying at all. As I say, originally I thought this was maybe something to do with the GPU, but I don't know. I think if it was a GPU fault, it probably would at least get caps lock response, or we'd be getting a bit further than we are right now. Maybe it would turn on, but with pixels on the screen more consistently. So I actually think what's going on here is it's crashing when it's running on the integrated graphics due to band joints between the memory and the CPU. So we're going to try and fix that. Unfortunately, because this is such a slim and nice laptop, this doesn't have RAM slots. So we have soldered RAM, and that's going to make this job kind of challenging. So let's get it apart, and then I can talk you through how we're going to try and fix this. I'm just going to tear straight into removing the motherboard. Okay, so I quickly paused the video there. I just wanted to check that this wasn't still in warranty, because it was only manufactured about 15 months ago. But no, it ran out of warranty 30 days ago, which is really bad luck for the customer, because they shouldn't be dealing with problems like this. I can't see any reason that this would be defective in this way. But let's take it apart and look at the board and see what we can see. Oh, that's kind of cool. As much as I hate Lenovo, they've got little pogo pins here, little spring clips that screw down and contact the motherboard to power the fans, rather than having a conventional cable. So no chance of breaking a cable there. That's really cool. I like that. Okay, we've got the board out here. And there's the CPU. For those playing along at home, this board is an NM-F301 motherboard. And it's got a Ryzen 7 7000, I think. So this is a very new system. You can't really see any epoxy around the edges of this one, but you can see just a couple of marks that suggest it could be there. Let's just lift the scope up and just double check. Yeah, you can see that shadow on the left of the CPU and the right of the CPU. They're still using the epoxy underfill, which is going to make this no fun. But where's the RAM? So I got this sticker. Let's see if we've got any RAM under here. Probably not. Oh, we do. Okay. You see the RAM there, and you can see again just signs that it might have had some of this epoxy under the edges. Yeah, you can just see like occasional little bits of black glue, which is never fun. Yeah, there we go. With the colors on the screen being all messed up, I think that it's using the RAM as shared integrated memory for the AMD GPU on the system. So that's probably why the colors on the screen are getting messed up. If the RAM and the CPU have a bad joint between them, then some corruption occurs and the graphics get all weird. This is going to be difficult to diagnose because what we don't know is if the fault is with the CPU joints or the RAM joints. It could be any chip, any joint. Because of the black epoxy, if we rework the RAM, we're probably going to have to rework the CPU. If we rework the CPU, we're definitely going to have to rework the RAM. So the only real approach I see to this is to remove all of them, rebuild all of them, put them back on and see what happens. We're going to have to try and do all of that without disturbing any of the VRAM or GPU. I think this is a RTX 4060. I assume there's no RAM on the backside. Let's just remove this sticker. This is going to have to go anyway. Yeah, okay, we've got no RAM on the back of the board, so it's just these 4 DDR5 chips and the CPU that we're really interested in. Hopefully my stencil fits that. That looks like it could be the same as a normal Ryzen CPU, but it looks, I don't know. Is this 7000 CPU bigger? It looks almost longer. That could be interesting. Let's stop for a second and go see if the stencil's the same size. I don't really want to have to rebuild this by hand, so I hope my stencil fits. I'm going to remove any meltable bits of plastic and get it ready to go on the rework station. Well, if you saw my previous Legion videos, you know the drill. We're going to try and heat up this CPU whilst keeping as much of the rest of the board as cold as possible. And then we're going to take a very thin underfill removal tool. We're going to slide that under the CPU and then we're going to wrench it off and hope we don't damage the PCB in any way. Once the CPU's off, I'll get the board cleaned up and I'll remove the RAM separately. I don't want to keep it under the heat for too long, so I could try and remove all of this stuff at once, but I think I'm going to remove the CPU and then remove the RAM with hot air later, and then we'll get it all rebuild, put it back on, and see if the problem is solved. Okay, as you can see, the CPU is off. We've got it right here. I've put it in this little tray for now. It doesn't quite fit, but it's the best we've got. If you don't have the tools, you just got to make do. And I don't have the tools for this because this is the first of this type of CPU that I have had to remove and rebuild. So, as you can see, it came off pretty well. There are no, or at least appears to be no, pad damage. All the epoxy seems to be on the back of the CPU, none is stuck to the board, which is kind of nice. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get this board on a little preheater, get it nice and hot. I'm going to clean up all the residual solder there, and I'm going to start removing the RAM memory. That'll do for now. I can go back over any spots that I haven't properly cleaned when after I do the RAM. So the RAM, I'm going to start with one of these two here. The reason being is I want to try and get the board nice and hot in this area before I keep the heat on that for too long. So heating here first will help that, and same goes here. This one's closer to the GPU, therefore I want to be heating this for a lower period of time, and so if I heat this one before I heat this one will already be kind of hot. So we'll start with this one and that one, and then we can go back and do this one and that one. Well, have we just found the problem? We have some missing pads. Let's have a look. See these bottom four. Now this one look unconnected, but this one is definitely meant to be there. Now this could have happened when I removed the chip. It's hard to know when the chip's fully liquid, when it's glued to the board with epoxy. So I might have accidentally pulled these not connected pads. We've got the same thing happen in this corner here. That could be me. Or it could be that this device has been sort of flexed around enough that those NC pads broke free a little bit. But you know what? Those three in the corner, they look unconnected. Those three in the corner, they look unconnected. These ones were a little lifted, so that was probably my fault. But actually there's none that are super important that I think I need to repair, so I'm still verging on this being a joint failure somewhere. Cool, well we've got the RAM off, we've got the CPU off. I guess we should start reballing. So I don't have a stencil for this, which means I'm going to be making my life absolutely miserable and placing each one of these balls by hand. This isn't something I'd wish upon my worst enemy. It really is tedious, but it can be done. So I'm going to lay a really thin layer of flux. You've got to know your flux very well, and you've got to spread it super thin, super evenly to stop the balls floating around. You want enough there just so that balls stick, not so much so they're suspended. Hopefully that'll prevent them moving around. And then we're just gonna try and pour what we think is going to be the right amount of balls onto the bottom of this CPU and slowly start placing them. What do you think? Do you think that's enough? Maybe a few more for good measure. I'm gonna change my polarization so there's less reflections. Make it a bit easier for me to see what I'm doing. We're gonna zoom in a bit as well. And then we just start doing this. Just moving each ball over to a pad. Sorry, I just realised you're out of shot there. Okay, so after about an hour and 20 minutes of playing with my balls, I'm about ready to blow. So let's drop the temperature. And the airflow. I want the airflow really low because there's a chance some of these balls are going to roll around. Let's go 30%. And I really hope this goes okay. I'm not expecting perfection here. Not on the first pass anyway, but I'm hoping that most of the balls will at least solder a little bit to their pads. You may have to adjust some. Just up the temperature a little bit. Oh, there we go. And just up here, I do not like, it's too close to that other one. Yeah, there's definitely a few I need to adjust. Those two are going to join. Right, I'm going to start adding a thin layer of a liquid flux. Hopefully I can get some of these that aren't sat very well tidied up a little bit. It's going to be a super thin layer of flux though. And hopefully they don't move around. This does have me worried a little bit. Oh, this is a lot of time to get these balls on, so I really hope this sorts it out. Okay, CPU's board apart from 1, 2, 3 merged balls, which isn't bad, so I'll sort those out and then we can move on to the RAM. Right, so I have the CPU nice and reboard now. Cut a bit of the audio out there. No one really wanted to hear me have a mental breakdown over the course of an hour 20 minutes of placing all those balls. But yeah, we have the CPU reboard. Now time for the RAM. Thankfully I have this tray and this stencil, so I'm not going to lose my mind reballing this stuff hopefully. But let's clean the epoxy off and get some balls on there. I'm going to start by adding flux and a bit of leaded solder just to clean up what's existing, and then we'll go in with some hot air and the blade to remove the rest of that underfill. I think I've removed enough of the epoxy, so now I'm just going to go back over and tin all of the pads on each chip. Make sure they can take solder before I start trying to reball them. A lot of pads in the corner where the epoxy was that are a bit grey and oxidized and not looking too good. That still needs a bit more cleaning, I think. There's still a couple balls there that aren't going to take. A couple pads that are still a bit oxidized. Just add some more flux. There we go. Okay, this should be good enough to reball now. Not really a fan of the stencil. I think it was made for a paste, but it should do what we need it to do. It's just a bit thin for my liking. I think it flexes a little bit as well. But I don't want to use paste. I want to use balls. Make sure everything's exactly the same size. Oh, I thought that would work. Okay. This is why I don't like the stencils. The balls don't stay very well. So at this stage we're just going to have to finish it off by hand. Maybe I should have used smaller balls, that would have made things easier. See, the stencil's just a little bit too thin. It leaves too much of the ball poking through the top of it. Which means the balls that you do place down don't roll around very well. They get caught, all of their neighbouring balls. So if you end up with one or two strays, it makes them hard to get out the way without disturbing the rest of them. Maybe I should have done these without a stencil as well. I guess that's the thing with stencils, there's a lesson to be learnt here. Get a good quality stencil and the job will take you a lot less time. Especially with direct heat reballing. It took me an hour 25 to reball that CPU without the stencil. Which is not so bad, but it could have taken 5 minutes, maybe 10. If I had a good stencil. Same is proving true with this RAM. It's taking me way longer than I wanted to. Because this stencil's no good. But I don't have an alternative, so I'm just going to keep placing these balls. Get the extras out of the way. And hope that the stencil doesn't flex too much when I apply heat. Because otherwise we're going to have to start again. Okay, we got most of the balls on without too much of a fight. So we'll just go back and place the remaining ones by hand. Alright, so the RAM is balled, the CPU is balled. I'm just going back over the CPU pads now on the motherboard, just making sure there's no high spots, and there are a couple that I didn't get when I cleaned it. So I'm going to get those cleaned off, and then we can fit the CPU. Once the CPU's fit, we can clean up the pads for the RAM on the PCB, fit the RAM, and see what happens. Okay, so the CPU's back on. So I guess it's time to put some RAM back on the board. I'm going to have to first clean up the pads for the RAM, and then once that's done we can just solder that on and get to testing this. Presuming I've done everything right, this should just work now, and work reliably, unlike before. But we will see. Reballing CPU and RAM all at the same time is a lot of work, so who knows what might happen. Let's just scratch away at that grey pad a little bit. There we go, I think we're ready to go. That was not a good start. Let's try that again. I think I might have just messed up one of the balls on the bottom of that chip, so we'll go back and deal with that in a minute. Just use a different chip for now. That one's in. Let's take a look at how badly I messed this one up. It's a bit messed up, but not really too bad. Let's just reflux that. We might get a merged ball just there, but I'm gonna hope that that doesn't happen. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, last chip to fit, and then we can test. I could have probably just reballed the RAM on this, but because of the epoxy, I couldn't trust that that would, one, definitely solve the problem, and two, that it wouldn't come back with bad joints under the CPU at some point, which is why I've decided to do all of them. It's a lot of work, and I don't recommend this amount of work to anybody. This is a lot, but it seems to be the only way we can keep this laptop from going into e-waste, so that's what we got to do. Just going to clean up the flux before we test it. I don't think I'm going to put it in the chassis straight away. I think I'm just going to put the heatsink on and plug it in and see if we get beeps on the USB testing function of the Vertianov programmer, which is what I'd usually do. Hopefully this is as good as new. I really hope it works. So this isn't like the other Lenovo's, it doesn't have the power button in the back center, so hopefully this is going to auto power without the CMOS battery, but we'll plug it in and see what happens. Okay, it's plugged in. Can't tell if the heatsink is warm. Do we get any lights on our tester? No. Okay. Oh, wait. It's just started blinking red. I think that's good. I mean, it means it's getting 5 volts to USB. But I don't know if this is trying to turn on or not. Don't know if I need to press the power button first. Let's just check real quick. Yeah, we're getting no voltages up here, so maybe I'm going to have to hit the power button. Okay, yeah, the power button connector's underneath the heatsink, so I'm going to have to take that back off. and put the board in the chassis. Now, at least we'll get to see if it displays. If any lights turn on. This chassis seems pretty flexible, so maybe that's what's attributed to the broken joints on this one. Maybe the chassis is too weak. Okay. I'm going to put the laptop on its side a second, because the charging port's on the back. Hopefully you can see this. And hit the power button. Okay, keyboard backlight is lit up, which is a good sign. It's not totally dead, we've not killed it. Let's plug in our USB thing. And wait. Oh man, the anticipation on this one's killing me. I really hope my hand Reballing CPU works. Is anything happening? This is taking longer than I'd like it to. It's had a CMOS reset, so it can take a while. But it might also still be dead. So I've been trying to diagnose this board and figure out why it wasn't displaying. I tried a couple things, but I decided to X-ray the board and go back over all the RAM that I'd soldered. And I noticed under this module here, there was a merged ball. So I took that off, I reballed it, and I put the board through the ultrasonic cleaner. I had to do all this off camera because I've got a bit of a deadline with this repair. The customer's really desperate for it back, and I just didn't get a chance to film that last RAM reball. But, I mean, you've already seen me reball all of the other modules, so it's basically the same. Anyway, I think it works now, so let's get this put back together and see what it does. Sticker goes on the back somewhere. Right, let's see if it works. Oh, thank God. There we go. It's booting Windows. Oh. I thought it was broken again. There we have it. So another Lenovo that has been saved from ear waste by reballing. This time, I mean, I think the fault would have been joints under the RAM. But as I say, it's really hard to reball the RAM without affecting joints under the CPU just because they're so close and because of that epoxy underfill. If that underfill wasn't there, this would have been way easier. Looking at the design of this, I expect this to be a common problem. I expect this to be the next 15ACH6H. This machine's just a little bit too flexible for my liking. If you press down on the keyboard, it bends, and there's not much in way of support for the motherboard, so I wonder if that's contributing to the failure on these. But this is the first one of these I'm seeing, so anyway, I don't think the future looks too bright for owners of the Lenovo Slim 14s, because this thing's only 30 days out of warranty. It's crazy that it's already failed with bad joints. Doesn't look like it was dropped or mishandled in any way. So I think we're going to have another common issue on our hands here. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. I hope you liked this video. Hit that like button if you learned something. And subscribe to see me tackle more tedious repairs. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.